Here in Australia, we have the highest number of Aboriginal people or Indigenous people with a hearing loss in the world. What are some things that are important to be able to connect and communicate with Aboriginal people, especially those that are deaf and hard of hearing? Often, I'm the only Aboriginal person in the room. Do you think I feel culturally safe? Our systems of belonging and kinship and protocols are very, very complicated. So always have that very open mindset. We need to listen to each other. We need to think about the environment and what happens when that can be thrown. Anything can actually change things in an instant. I'm Jody Barney, and I'm an Atlantic Fellow of Social Equity. I'm a deaf Aboriginal woman. I travel around Australia working with deaf and hard of hearing Aboriginal people who are often marginalised by the system and how that impacts on their lives. As you can see, I look white. The broader community would assume that I am this welfare, patronising, good doer. And that frustrates me, that people have these assumptions that that this is not my community. And I say, excuse me, this is my culture, this is my community. I can't give it up. I can't let it go. I can't step back. When we were colonised, the government made the decision that any Aboriginal person who was not a full blood in their terms could be taken off the land. The idea was they could become naturally part of the Australian population and remove any black blood. And it happened to my grandmother and my father and myself. That loss of connection, that loss of identity and that loss of who you are and where you're from, it's just a loss and a grieving process which is traumatic. The damage that happened to our people, those that are deaf, those that are hard of hearing, or those that have disabilities, it's so complex. We've tried to help many find their home. And if I don't know who I am, how can I help them?
Racial profiling is getting worse. And you say you're walking down the street and you can't hear properly, and the police stop you, they may assume that you're being aggressive and arrest you.
In the Northern Territory, it's the intersection of race and disability which, leads to a really high level of disadvantage.
The statistics of deaf and hard of hearing people within the prison system is really generally about 95%. And I know we've talked previously about access to interpreters with the clients. They actually don't really know what their rights are. And they don't know what to ask for.
We haven't got that level of advocacy on the ground here.
I'm doing the Atlantic Fellows project, and I'm working with Aboriginal deaf women to raise their awareness and training and skill development to become advocates, to give them better awareness around advocacy and raising issues around human rights.
Part of my project with Atlantic Fellows is to connect two deaf Aboriginal women that I know very well. Tresna is very much ingrained in her, growing up in her culture and her community. And this other young deaf Aboriginal woman is Jessica. All her carers and her guardian have been non-Aboriginal. And so She's lost a lot of her cultural identity. Having Tresna working with Jessica is like the big sister program. Jessica is not only deaf, she also has a brain injury. Tresna's skills and knowledge with her son, who's autistic, is a perfect match for her to work with Jessica. And my role in all of this is to advise and support. I leave it here in their space, in the community, for that to develop. People say to me, you must be worn out with all the advocacy work that you do. And I say, well, the government, they fail to provide. They fail to protect. And so for us, as deaf Aboriginal people, we have no voice. In Aboriginal spoken languages, there's no word for disability. Our community just accepts people. It's okay to be deaf, it's okay to be Aboriginal, and you can be both. And you have your identity and you don't have to separate those aspects of yourself. And if I can give just a little bit of my knowledge to empower people to be the best that they can be with what they have, why wouldn't I? The system's only going to change from people who buck up against it.